Welcome and good evening, everybody. My name's Aaron, and today I'm going to be talking things about accounting and finance and the technology. Now, for those of you who haven't attended any of these webinars before, I'll talk for about 30 minutes, but I'm going to change it up today. I'm going to encourage people to actually ask questions about this. I do have some content to talk to you about, and really it's all about questions that people have asked me over the years. But I've been an accountant for dentists, dental practices, dental groups, not just me, but my whole team, for over 23 years. So we know what works, we know what doesn't work, we know what practices need to do. And we also have our own dental clinics, my wife's clinics, the Neem Tree dental practices. So everything we've done has always been tried and tested in those clinics. So it's so important to ally yourself with someone who knows what they're doing and understands the dental business if you're looking for an accountant. But so what I want to do today is I'll be talking accounting stuff, questions that people have asked me, but please feel free to ask me questions as we go along. Just bear with me a second. Let's get this all right. Okay, let's get my Samara brand up there. Okay, so if anyone has questions, please do ask. But I will start off with some of the questions I've had over the years. So first question is, what software do I actually need to get started and what can wait? So if you're running a practice, it could be a single practice, it could be a multi-site group, it could be anything. The first thing in the accounting sense of the word is you need to have a bookkeeping package in place. Now, many years ago, people might have used Excel to do their accounts for their practices. Honestly, you need to have moved away from that a long time ago. And if you haven't, that needs to be done first things. And before we even do that, if you aren't doing your accounts on a week by week, day by day, month by month basis, you need to get this sorted out. So what packages are we looking at? So on the accounting side of things, you really want to go cloud, okay? You can only really go cloud now, okay? And the two big names you may have heard of are Xero, which is Xero, and QuickBooks. There's other software like Zoho, there's other ones like Free Agent, various things. But honestly, if I was going to recommend, and the only one we really truly recommend is Xero to our clients. It's a platform that's scalable, it's very good, it's efficient, it's secure, and I would strongly suggest that. So that's going to be your bookkeeping system. So that's what every month the information needs to go into there, or every day information needs to go into there, such as your invoices you receive, the income that you've made, all the invoices relating to labs or materials or electrics or whatever. It's all going in there. Now, you might be thinking, well, and I'll come on to how you do that and what you do with that in a moment, okay, and who would do that. But that's the software, okay, for accounting. Now, you will also in your clinics have some type of practice management system. Now, historically, there's always been things like Software of Excellence, and that's been around, I believe, for 36 years. Can you believe it? So a long time, but that's not cloud-based. So if you're looking to go to cloud-based, the obvious ones are things like Dentally, which is still owned by Henry Schein. And again, being cloud-based is hugely valuable and useful. But going back to the accounting side, you have Xero. But then you also want to think about, how do I capture that information in? So in a month-to-month or day, in a month, you might get 100 invoices. You might get loads of invoices from various sources. You might get them on email, you might get them on paper, you might get them in the post, or you might get them through some other format. But what you really want to do is get them into one format, and that format will be a digital format. And why? Because that will save you time. So that digital format, such as a PDF or an image of that invoice, wants to be going into some type of kind of receipt capture kind of software. So you may have heard of software called Dext. There's auto entry. The one that Xero uses is HubDoc, because that's part of the Xero package, Xero ecosystem. So what would happen? Let's say I have a bill coming in from Dental Directory. And so I look at it from my own clinic's point of view. That bill comes electronically via email into HubDoc directly. Okay, in HubDoc, that information is extracted from HubDoc and from HubDoc, that information extracted and goes into Xero into the relevant fields. Now, someone is doing this, someone's making sure that the data being transferred is correct, but that's what happens. So it's so important that you set up the right systems to do this. Now, at the end of the month then, so remember, the invoice data's come into Xero. Someone's entered that information into the Xero system, and that would be a bookkeeper. Now, I would strongly suggest you have a bookkeeper do that, not your nurse or manager or someone who knows how to use the software. So often we've dealt with practices where it's just been badly put into, and if it's garbage in, it's garbage out. So have the right person to do that. And if you need help with finding bookkeepers or someone to do it, we can do that. But more importantly, once that data's gone into Xero, at the end of the month, you might need to pay your bills. Now, historically, people might have written checks. Checks aren't really there anymore. But you can now make payments in one batch payments. So again, you might have an integration with Xero, and you might just tick all the boxes. You can see. So remember, in Xero you can actually see the actual invoice that is scanned in. You can see a copy of it. Check. Oh, that's fine. That bill's correct. I'm going to tick it. I'm going to pay. I'm going to tick this. I'm going to pay. I'm going to tick this. I'm going to pay. Well, I'm not going to pay that one yet. So then you can do one batch payment in one go, and it just it comes out in one go. It logs straight into your bank account, makes the payment, and it's gone. Now, how much time does that save? Honestly, it saves absolutely hours. Okay, absolutely hours. So the key things are having the Xero in place. The key things is having something like HubDoc in place. And then the key thing is having some type of payment processor in place. Now, we use something called Cresco, C-R-E-Z-C-O, which links into Xero, and that really helps. Now, in addition, we have other kind of software, which is on the kind of accounts. If you wanted to have an accounts payable approval software, so if you're running a group, you're going to have lots of invoices coming from various places. You might run multiple Xeros. So you want to then think about, how do I approve the invoices? There must be a process of approval. So again, an AP system can be put into place. There's something called like Approval Max. There's Lightyear. There's various options that can go into place. So that's kind of very basics of the bookkeeping side of things. Then, of course, there's payroll. Again, many different types of payroll out there, systems out there. Xero is an option. BrightPay is one that we always use for our clients. And then, of course, there's lots of reporting that you can do, reporting tools you can do. You can use Sift Analytics, Fathom, Spotlight, you name it. There's so many things that can be used. So I won't go into that much detail now. So that's my first question. Okay, answered. The next question I've always had is, okay, I'll come back to that in a minute. How do I make my PMS talk to my accounting system? So PMS, practice management system. Well, the trouble is at the moment, a lot of clinics in the UK are mainly using Software of Excellence. So that is a kind of standalone product, and it's not very helpful to be able to extract data out of it. Something cloud-based, such as Dentally, makes things much easier because you can extract data out. But what we've found in the dental market is that data just sits in different silos. Okay, you've got something sitting in the practice management system. You've got some data sitting in Xero, and then never the two will meet. So what we are building actually is a kind of a tool where all this data gets pulled together, and then you can start seeing that data and having a proper data dashboard to interpret your business performance. We're in the process of building it. That will be AI driven as well, and I'll share some details towards the end of this webinar on that. Now, right. Now, one of the things I didn't mention, and I should mention, is when you're using something like Xero, your bank information is talking to it all the time. As long as you set it up correctly, the information coming from your banks is going into Xero all the time. So the debits and the credits from the bank statements are going in there. So that's really helpful because that speeds up the process. You don't have to type it in. You don't have to get a PDF. You don't have to get a CSV file to upload. It's just coming in automatically through. And again, it's all done through a secure route. Now, one of the things that I've always picked up over the years is how many practices, and this is down to poor bookkeeping, to be honest with you, are doing cash accounting. as opposed to accruals-based accounting. Now, you might be thinking, well, what does that mean? What's cash accounting? What they're doing is that you have all the information that's going on that's in the bank statement. That's just being recorded as a cost against materials or a cost against labs or cost against electricity. And the income coming in is saying, oh, that's the income for the month of October, for instance, and you add them all up. Now, that's really not the ideal way to do accounting. If you're trying to understand the business, you really need to be doing based on accruals-based accounting. So what does that mean? It's based on the invoices you receive. So when you receive an invoice from, let's say, an electricity invoice from, say, National Power, you process that invoice. You don't process the payment, you process the invoice at each month. And at the end of the month, we reconcile the bank to the payment that's been made. That's kind of how you should be doing proper accounting. Now, I've seen practices that have done cash accounting, and large groups even doing cash accounting, and really it gives meaningless data. And with that meaningless data, you have no idea how your business is doing because you're not really accounting with the invoices. You want to get proper invoice information in. And similarly on the top line with the revenue, again, take the information from your practice management system, the income generated, or from the payment allocation report, typically from Dentally or Software of Excellence. This matters because when you want to then analyze this data and start making better decisions, that's what you need to do. So if you are doing cash accounting, taking information from the bank statements and doing the accounting that way, as opposed to taking it from the invoice, change it. Okay, honestly, change it. That's so important. Right, what else have I got to? I've been asked. Let's see. I'm trying to find. Where have you gone? Anyone there? My laptop's playing up. Okay, sorry. Here we go. Okay. And my laptop went for a moment. Okay. So what are the numbers? So let's assuming you're doing this on a month-to-month basis. You're getting the bookkeeping done with accruals-based accounting done every month. You'll get so that at the end of the month, you can start seeing how your performance is. You can see the revenues, you can see all the costs, and you can see if you're making money or if you're losing money. But what are the things you should be actually looking at on a month-by-month basis, basically? Well, some of the key metrics I would look at, I'll come back to that question in a minute. Some of the key things you should be looking at is your hourly rate. Let's say you're running an associate-led practice. You can determine the hours that they're working, the revenue they're generating, and you can start tracking and comparing which associate is making more money or which associate is making less money. And then you start thinking, if you're the business owner, do I push more work to a particular associate because they're generating a higher income? Potentially, okay? Another metric you want to be looking from your practice management system is to see how many new patients have I got this month? And does that correlate with the money you're spending on marketing? Okay, again, so if you had all this data in one dashboard, you can then see, okay, how does that work? How does it not work? Cash in bank, I think, is important. I think another key point, what we have in our practices is that we don't let people not pay us. We get people to pay us as the work's being done. We even get payment in advance. So our debtors are very low. On the odd occasion, someone might have walked out from the practice and forgot to pay, but really it's very low. So we don't offer any payment terms. We don't give them invoices in the post. We don't do anything like that. We expect people to pay us there and then, or once the treatment's been done. So, and if I do have any debtors, we may need to make sure we're chasing them up and figuring out what the problem is. What else is there? So let me just go back to this. Please, could you explain why invoice before paying should be the right way? So I'm not sure what that means, but I'm assuming you're talking about the accruals-based accounting. So accruals is a concept of accounting. It's one of the kind of four important points under accounting. There's and that means you're matching the activity to the invoice that's come through. So quite often or not, you might have seen your bank account. If you're doing cash accounting, you might make a cash payment to a supplier, but that may have been related to something 3 months ago. Okay, so you're not matching and that's another concept, the matching concept. You're not matching the income to the activity on the expenses side. So it's so important to have an accruals-based approach to doing the bookkeeping, to doing the accounting. So if you look at any other large organization, or all large organizations out there will only do bookkeeping and accounting on an accruals basis. It's smaller businesses when they start doing cash accounting, but that's not very helpful, and it's not very kind of useful for you to analyze or see how your business is doing. I think hopefully that maybe you've answered your question. Now, you might be thinking, right, Aaron, you're talking about all this stuff, and you're not that techie. How hard is this to do? It's not rocket science. If you've got a techie brain and a financial brain, you could do it, but it'll take time. Okay, it'll take effort. Certainly from our side, we can certainly help you. We're accountants. This is all we do, pretty much. Well, one thing. My team, I have a whole team of accountants that do this. Okay, for dental practices. So it'll take a few weeks to get into implement it and stabilize it. But I think it's important that you kind of have a practice manager that they'll review what's going on. You'll have an external team such as ourselves will do the bookkeeping, management accounts, payroll, that type of stuff. And then obviously the practice owner can do the sign off when they're needed. Okay. But in terms of from a cadence point of view, you're getting those invoices coming through every day, and you want to get those books updated every day. You don't want to let them lie up for 1 month or 2 months. You want everything done on a day-to-day basis. So at the end of the month, you know how you're doing, how much money you've made, how much money you've lost. And so then at the end of the month, you close the books. You may have heard that term. And then you say at the end of the month, we've got, let's say, 4 or 5 days after the month end, you know how you've done, you've made what your performance is, and you've actually can see, okay, I've done quite well or not so well, and this is what we need to change the following month. So what are the things that so you might be thinking, oh God, this is so much stuff you're throwing at me, and I probably am. Okay, so sorry, but I'll come back to that. There's another question from Justine here, so I'll come back to that in a minute. But the quickest, some quick wins you might get in the next 30 days. If you are using Xero, but you're not using bank fees, make sure you turn the bank fees on. That will save you so much time. Implement a receipt capture system such as HubDoc, such as Dex, such as Auto Entry, one of those. And that's the first thing. And then I suppose the other thing is to set up something like a payment system where you can make all the payments directly from Xero. Okay, you just tick the boxes. Okay, you don't even have to log into your bank account. Through Xero, you can log into your bank account and you make all the payments, and it just goes out in one go. Honestly, before we had that, it would take me hours to make payments, and we've got 2 clinics. It'll take a long time. I can get all the payments done within 5 minutes, okay, at max. So these things can change and really speed up your turnaround time and save you valuable time so you can focus on growing the business. What else are there? The other questions that we got. Come back. So yeah, some people are saying, well, I've got a different system. I'm not using Xero. How can you switch off or switch over? It's all very doable. We have a data migration process in place where we actually look at what software you're using, and then there's a process of transferring the data at a certain cutoff date, and then we'll implement Xero, and then we'll start doing making sure the data is clean, and potentially run it parallel for 1 month with your existing software with Xero. All very logical, very doable, all very easy to do. Let me go back to some other questions that I've had as well over the years. Okay, yeah. So in terms of the, someone's asked, well, does this? Am I talking about one practice? Or am I talking about multiple practices? So now you might say, I've got a group of 4 or 5 practices. This needs to be done for each practice. So that doesn't mean you have one Xero file for all practices. No, that's absolutely rubbish. You need to have a Xero file, Xero software subscription for each practice. And you might be thinking, well, that's going to cost me more money. Yeah, it will cost you more money, but it will be way more expensive if you grouped everything into one Xero, and then you're trying to sell one practice down the line. No one's going to buy your practice. I can guarantee it, because they can't see where the data, which practice is making the money, which one isn't making the money. So you need to have a separate financial accounting system for each practice in place. It will set you up so much better for the long term. And then you say in the future, oh, I've got 3 practices, I want to sell one. You can just sell it very easily because the data is self-contained within one kind of bookkeeping package. In addition, what else is there we should do? What else is the other question? Other KPIs to measure them, I've said. So KPIs, I mentioned the hourly rate, I mentioned the new patients we get. If you're an NHS practice, look at the UDA, UOA run rate. Looking at patient number of cancellations per month is also a good one to track. That's kind of typically what we put in a monthly reporting pack. And I think that's what people want to see. In addition, we also always track our taxes. How much tax have we paid? What is our anticipated tax payment that's going to be in the next January? So we've always got a rough idea of what the tax will be and what the cash flow situation will be. So all of this all leads to us, if we're doing all these numbers and we're keeping track of it, we can then also then monitor our cash flow and predict, okay, what is our cash position going to be at the end of the month? So when it comes to accounting, there's three main accounting statements. One is the profit and loss, one's the balance sheet, one is the cash flow. And you want to be able to track your cash flow to predict what your cash flow situation is going to be in a few months down the line. Quite often or not, many people don't do that. And that's when a problem arises. So get that factored into this whole mix of what we're talking about here. Who should own which processes? Okay, yeah. So as I said, the practice manager should be in charge and getting the information to the accountants. The accountants should be taking care of the bookkeeping, the annual accounts, the monthly accounts, management accounts, the payroll. If you're a group, you might want to start thinking about having a fractional CFO. We do offer that service where you might say you want 2 or 3 hours of one of our team per month who can provide the CFO services. Sometimes I do it, sometimes one of my other colleagues does it. But again, it's giving you insight into the practice, into the financials, okay? Yeah, I think those are kind of the main points. Then I'm going to answer, there's another question that's just come down here. Is there a way to get around fraud from customer not present at payments? Let me think that through. So, to get around fraud. Yeah, good question. If the customer's not there, depending who the person is, this is more of a payment processing issue. I'm no expert in this, Jocelyn. I think we'd have to talk to your credit card provider. How do they suggest you do this? One way maybe is that you provide like a Stripe link for people to pay on. But again, it's the verification of is the card being stolen? I'm not sure exactly in that context what that means, okay? Then the other kind of questions that are there, let me see. Just bear with me a second. Okay, so if we so we've talked about switching. So okay, in terms of costs and pricing for this, it'll vary. Okay, I can't give you a definitive answer, but the way we always assess clients for this type of service is if you've got an existing Xero file, we will always investigate that and ask you to give us access to Xero. We will then do our number crunching and analyze it and look at the data historically, say, okay, this is what we think is good, this isn't not so good, this needs to be tidied up, and then we'll come up with a price from that. So we help us to understand your Xero file. That's what we want. That's our process. In terms of where does it go? I think, and also if you've got multiple sites, there'll be multiple costs associated with this. So there are many accountants in the UK, and some are good, some are not so good, and there are many in the dental sector. Some are good, some are not so good. I think things you need to be looking out for, and there are many people in the accounting sector who promote themselves as accountants who aren't even qualified accountants. So be very careful. You need to be looking for the ideal institute is the Institute of Chartered Accountants in England and Wales, which is what my firm is. I'm a fellow of that, and there are lots of not like dentistry where you can't act as a dentist if you're not a dentist. People in accounting, lots of people call themselves accountants when they're not. So be very careful in that respect. Get the right people and the right team to support you. I think in terms of pricing, you'll have to look at cost of the subscription of the software, the payroll, individual people, the bookkeeping cost, the monthly cost, the management accounts cost. So it does there's lots of things that need to be done. Okay, but if you're serious, now all these points I'm raising today is, it's, if you're serious about growing and developing a business, you need visibility of your numbers. If you don't have visibility of your numbers, it's meaningless. It's absolutely meaningless. Okay, so you can work your system, and the way we run it in our clinics, again, my partner, my wife's me, so she's a dentist, but she doesn't work clinically anymore. She's been running associate run clinics for the last 10, 15 years. But we have access to these numbers. We see these numbers on a week by week basis, month by month basis. So we know what's working, what's not working. We can make decisions and adjust accordingly. And that's why it's so important to have this type of information at hand, and having this type of system in place to do it. Because if you're too busy in the dentistry, you won't have these systems. And therefore, if you're a practice owner, I'd urge you to put these systems in. And even if you haven't, and if you enjoy the dentistry, great, but still put these systems in, because you at some point may want to step back to see how your performance is, and make better decisions to actually say, I'm going to grow this, I'm going to do this, I'm going to add another surgery, I'm going to buy another clinic. It could be any of these things. So really, really, really important in this respect. Then one of the other things that I alluded to, and will share a screenshot somewhere, if I can do this again. How do I share the screen? No, that's not right. Bear with me a sec. Sorry, that's my dog barking. So I'm just trying to find the right thing. So hopefully you can see this. Okay. Now this is our Samera.ai. Now we are, as I said earlier, we're building basically an AI-driven CFO service. And what you can see here is still in the process of being built by my AI development team. But what we're trying to do is bring in multiple sources of data for this. So you could get data from Google, you can get data from your practices, from your practice management system, such as Xero, such as Dentally. All of that data is coming into one pot. And you want to be able to then see all that data in one place and then make decisions on it. So you could then see the data from Xero, the data from kind of Dentally, the data from Google, and then from that dashboard will tell you, okay, this is what we're doing, this is what we're working well, this is what's not working well. But you want it to be driven, data driven. Okay, you don't want to have to put hand type things in or do anything like that. You want it all coming. So that's why it's so important the data going into Dentally, the data going to Xero, the data going to Google, the data is actually accurate and correct. It's been done properly the first time. That's why, as I said earlier, you want accruals-based accounting to be doing this. Now, if you're not doing accruals-based accounting, that data is going to be meaningless. So it's so important to be getting that right as well. Now, if that's kind of floats your boat and you're interested in this type of thing, I appreciate it's not for everybody, but honestly, this is where I see it all going across accounting. You can have a read of this in your own time. You can definitely find out more. You can register your interest. We are looking for a few practices to test this out on, okay? And we'll certainly be in touch very soon. And the key kind of clients we're looking for people who are using Xero or who want to use Xero, who are using Dentally, okay? Those are the two main drivers at the moment, because again, we're getting the API integrations into that software, and then from that we can then test it out and build it. We're doing it in our own clinics, we're testing it out, but it's always good to get other clinics to do that as well. So if anyone's interested, just please fill in this form, and then one of the team or myself will reach out to you in coming weeks and days to discuss. Okay, so let's go back to this. So on that note, I don't really have much more to say. Half an hour is up. Has anyone got any further questions? I know it's a short and sharp 30 minutes. I try and keep it tight. I know everyone's got other responsibilities of dinner and children and parents and dogs and all that type of thing. If anyone's not got any questions, I will go. Let me see. Is there any other questions? I'm not sure if there is. So thank you so much. I will leave you there. But if you need to discuss anything, or you're interested in some help, drop me an email. My email address is aron@samara.co.uk, and we can go from there. Thanks very much. Have a nice evening. Bye-bye.